Okay, so let's start the meeting. Okay, so we're gonna, is everything right? I can't see anything, because I think you're gonna have to do everything, because I can't see I can see you looking.
Mr. Barker says we're live.
Okay, so this is the work session for the Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education. It's 6:30, it's now 6:36 on February 4th, and if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a budget review, but we're going to have an introduction to the new staff. Trustee Valen, you said there's a staff member there. Can you introduce us, please?
Yes, I believe, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Johan Joku to introduce the new member of staff who's here, who I believe is
Olivia Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Olivia Robinson. I'm a new teacher here for the preschool program. I'm also a Greenburgh alumni, so I'm happy to be here to give back to a community that gave so much to me. Thank you again.
Ms. Robinson, did you say you graduated from Woodlands?
Yes, I graduated from Woodlands.
Oh, you know, we do special write-ups on graduates that come back.
So I guess she's saying prepare your sound bites for your invites.
Oh, so be ready to come tell your story. Thank you for coming back to work with us. You said you'll be at ECP?
Yes, I work at ECP.
Wonderful. I'm sorry I'm not there to meet you.
It's okay.
Which building are you in right now?
I'm in the main one.
The main.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you all. Is that the only stuff that's there?
Yes, I think so. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next we have the budget presentation.
There we go. So,
Thank you, Lisa.
did you notice that?
That's great.
I don't know that you're gonna like it, but we did it.
I like it, makes me very happy.
So the agenda for tonight's meeting is going to be the budgetary vision, beliefs, and goals. Then we're gonna go over a rollover budget, which will show you the expenditures and revenues, and then we will review the property tax cap.
So thank you. I'm going to begin as we go over very briefly the budgetary vision, beliefs, and goals that motivate the building of a district budget that we try to adhere to as we approach this process every year. Very briefly, for the public, I want to assure and show you how that this budget, the vision we always have as we approach this budget is to just be very diligent to present to you, our community, a budget to support our instructional priorities. We love to maximize and look to always maximize our resources to ensure that the needs of the students in the district are met, while we are simultaneously being good stewards of the public citizenry and public monies. We try to identify as much as possible cost savings and reallocation of money to support all the instructional programs. And so those are our goals. But it's motivated by the foundation of what we believe in as a central administration and how we know we support our community and our board. You know, we know all our decisions must be motivated by our students first. And so as we approach this process, we are always thinking about what students need and putting them first. We continue to ensure the district and the school and our staff's needs are reflected. We have a collaborative process we put in place where we meet with all of our administrators and principals and directors, and they are engaged in this process to kind of tell us what their needs are, and we try to, with their suggestions, look to be cognizant of attracting the very best to come to this district. All our resources support the vision and mission of the district and reflect the input from those stakeholder groups that I mentioned. So as we got directly into the building of the budget, we wanted to develop a budget that stays in alignment with a reasonable budget-to-budget increase. And Ms. Raymond is going to go over that tonight. We wanted to identify top instructional priorities and maximize resources to achieve them, and explore ways to creatively trim our budget so that the instructional vision of the district does not cost the district more money. That is huge, and we look at that many times over and over again, where we can cut and trim, but not sacrifice our instructional program. And then we look where we can repurpose monies from existing dollars to increase programming and options for students, maintaining those levels of educational services and current academic programs while staying within the tax levy cap and remaining fiscally responsible. So with that, those are our opening slides of how we approach the budget, our vision, our beliefs, and our goals. We're now going to segue right into the what our draft of a rollover budget, and Ms. Raymond is going to take this slide.
Thank you, Dr. Iverson. So a rollover budget is taking all of the expenses from this current year and rolling them forward into the new year with the necessary adjustments that would need to be made. For example, we know what our salaries and benefits for the most part are. As I had reported at the last meeting, ERS, TRS, and health insurance had given us a projection of what those percentages are going to be. Since then, the TRS has come down with a more definitive number. It's not written in stone, but it's more accurate, from between 9.5% and 10%. So that right now is 9.59% that they have changed their number to. So we will be using that for our TRS calculation. This is the first year that we're going to have to budget for a debt service payment. The energy performance contract, first principal and 2 interest payments are due in the 25-26 school year. And since phase 2 is already starting, matter of fact, it's going to be starting this month with some asbestos removal, we are working, Dennis and I, Mr. Pugliese and I are working with the construction manager and our architects to try to time how much money is going to be needed for this next school year. So what I'll do is I will see what have we allocated for that, what did we say we were going to bond. I'm not going to go to bond, I'm going to take a bond anticipation note, because you do not want to take a bond if your project is going to extend over multiple years, because then I'd have to start making principal and interest payments. Where if I just take money that I need in a bond anticipation note, I will only pay interest on that. Then in the second year, 26-27, when the next part of the project or the later part of next school year it starts, you go for another bond anticipation note, and right towards the end of the project, you roll both of that bands into a bond, then you'll start your payment in 27-28. Which is really what you want to do, because again, you don't want to pay for something that you haven't exactly received everything for. So that we're in the midst of doing that also. Going back to salary and benefits, we know for the most part a good portion of the retirements that have come through. There could possibly be more, but we do know of the majority of them. We do know, Dr. Njoku, Dr. Iverson and I are working on deciding on replacements. If something needs to be replaced, something needs to be repurposed, maybe put somewhere else, and positions that are still in our budget that need to be filled from people leaving, coming, and going. So we're working on that and analyzing that currently. Contractual expenses, everything that we knew, we rolled over. For example, I do know about insurance, general liability insurance. I do know the range. Finally I did budget for something. Fortunately, that has come in lower, so I will make an adjustment. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I do know now a better range of those numbers. And then transportation, we always go with the CPI as it is set in May. We won't know that until June, so we have to estimate what that'll be, and we've used 4.5%. So just a fast, not fast enough, just a fast overview of expenditure to expenditure. Just rolling this budget over as we know it, for right now, and again, this is very rough. It's just to give you an idea of what, we're looking at, okay?
I can hear you now.
Thank you.
That's not It's the next slide.
Thank you. So the budget to budget right now with this rollover, is almost $84.9 million. And this year was $80,567,747. This represents a 5.34% budget to budget increase, or just under $4.3 million. Now, as I've said in every other year, when we do the budget presentation, the budget to budget increase doesn't mean anything. It's obviously the levy increase that matters. But if you want to break this down into the object codes, which are the codes here on the left, you'll see that salary and benefits, as is in any budget, is always the largest expenditure in any school budget. This represents approximately 70% of the budget at this time. We haven't touched equipment, supplies, or textbooks. Just rolled it over from what it was this year. Contractual expenses, as I said, we're going to increase transportation by the CPI, as well as some of the other contractual expenses that we knew at the time, such as insurance. BOCES every year does go up. They have their own expenses. They have salaries and benefits that they have to account for. That'll go up anywhere between 5 and 7.5%. And then here's where we budget for the debt service payment. You'll see this year, we always budget for $25,000 for a revenue anticipation note in case we would need that when we are collecting taxes. We've never had to use that. So I didn't budget for that this year, but I did budget for the energy performance contract and for the band interest payment. And then I kept interfund transfers the same, $500,000 to go to the capital interfund transfer and $425,000 for the special aid fund transfer, which is the federal funds. So on the other side, we have to budget the revenues, and it's got to balance the expenditures, so this is exactly the same. And here is where we're projecting our revenues. So real property taxes, in order to balance this budget, right now, real property taxes would go up 5.11%. Our pilot payments, we have 2 this year. Next year, we're going to have 3. So we budgeted some money, extra money there. Sales tax, tuition, and interest earnings. Amy and I have been analyzing these 3 items here. We're going back on a 3 to 5 year history to see what is the history of what has happened over time. Sales tax we're all dependent on Westchester County, on what they collect, and we get 1.11% of approximately of that quarter's interest earnings. Tuition, that is for the health and welfare billing that we bill for students who go to Maria Regina, LaFell, Sacred Heart, and Country Day School. We bill their their district of origin. They pay for those services because we have to provide that because they go to school in our district at a private school. And part of that is also foster care billing. When a foster student is placed in a home in our district, you bill their district of origin where they came from for their education. And interest earnings. We did very well on interest earnings the last school year, and as I have reported previously, Amy and I met with our New York Liquid Asset Funds advisor, and we locked in money in a it's not a CD, but we locked it into like a money market at a fixed rate, which we locked it in when it was over 4%. So that money is sitting there, everything else is earning, I believe right now it's at 3.49%, and unfortunately, it just keeps dropping. I'm confident that we could at least double what we budgeted in the 24-25 year, but again, Amy and I are analyzing that to see if we could possibly increase. I don't want to budget something if the interest rates keep falling, and where are we gonna make that up? So I'm always a little conservative with the revenues. Yeah.
Should I wait till the end?
It's up to you.
How long is that locked in for? If it's money market, those usually.
It's like 6 months. One's 6 months, one's 12 months.
Okay, so
Yeah.
future.
It's kind of like a CD,
Okay,
okay? State aid, you'll see here, I've budgeted the executive proposal. That's the only numbers we have right now, only numbers we know. We're waiting for both the Assembly and the Senate to release their numbers, then they have to meet, and once hopefully a state budget gets adopted by April 1st, we will know exactly what it is Greenburgh is slated to get. And then the other revenues are things like insurance recoveries when we have to report something to our insurance company, any refund of prior year expenses we may get. We always get a BOCES refund, because if you don't spend something, you still have to pay BOCES, but if you don't actually use it, you get the money back, a refund in the next year. And the unappropriated fund balance is also budgeted here. So what is it that we still don't know? We don't know what the energy performance contract savings that we can realize in the 25-26 budget is. Dennis and I have been in talks with RWE, the energy performance contractor, and we've been working very closely with Kaliana to I asked them, there's gotta be some kind of savings. You're almost done with the lights, when you're done with the solar panels, etc. I wanna realize something. I understand it won't be the full amount once the project is done, but there's gotta be something that we can realize. So he's helping us to come up with that so we can budget for that. Budgeting for that is supposed to help offset the bond payment. So that's one reason I'm anticipating, I'm hoping I'm gonna be able to budget anywhere from 150 to 250,000 savings just for next school year. As I said, our general liability insurance and student accident insurance, at the time, I just used an estimate that was thrown out over the summer. I now received an email just this week that is projected to go up anywhere from 15 to 25%. There will be a special meeting because it is going to be a large increase. Every school district is experiencing this, so NYSER is going to be having a meeting to fill us all in on what is going on, what are the trends, have been the largest claims. They don't always do that, but they do have periodic meetings to let us know what's going on. And then our capital interfund transfer. We haven't earmarked anything for that, whether we do a potential project, do we take that money and possibly put it into the capital reserve and try to concentrate on the projects that we're doing now and fund what we can through Mr. Puglise's budget. That's all something that hasn't been discussed, but we left the money there, and whether or not to increase it or not, we haven't done that yet because nothing has been decided. We talked about state aid, and Amy and I are analyzing interest. So then the tax cap. Let me just show you the calculation for the tax cap. So our tax base growth factor is 1.0122. It's just up slightly from 1.017. And this represents new construction and or capital construction home improvements that people have done that are reflected through here from the Office of Real Property Services. You know that the allowable growth factor or inflation, which is CPI, cannot be the lesser. It has to be the lesser of CPI or 2% as is set in January. This year, again, we will be using 2% because CPI is over that. Inclusions to the tax cap calculation include any available carryover from the previous year. So if we could levy $68 million in this school year to stay within a simple majority, but we only levied $67 million, I can take up to 1.5% of that money from the previous year and roll it over into the next year, if you so choose that you want to do that. So that will be included in the calculation. And then the exclusions to the tax cap include pilot payments. So remember, pilot payments are payments in lieu of taxes. It's an obligation that the district has. So you can't, God forbid we go on a contingent budget, you can't touch a pilot payment. It has to be calculated in there. So you either add or subtract, depending on the year, a pilot payment. That way you're not going to tax the taxpayers on that amount of money because you're gonna get it from the Westchester County IDA. And then debt service and capital obligations. The taxpayers voted that we could take an energy performance contract, there's a lease there, the bond anticipation notes, a bond, and Southern Westchester BOCES capital expenditures is what you vote on in April when you vote on the BOCES budget. Part of that is their administrative budget, which includes capital expenses. So that is a exclusion to the tax cap. And then ERS and TRS contributions, if from year to year it increases by more than 2%, you can subtract the difference as an exclusion, which is what we did this year for ERS. So I tried to show you, as of today, here's a side-by-side comparison. I put on the left the actual tax cap calculation for this school year, and then on the right in blue, I show you that you start your tax cap calculation with this year's tax levy, the most recent tax levy that was approved by the taxpayers. Then we can multiply that by the tax base growth factor. Then we add in the pilot payments that we said we were going to collect this year, and we subtract out the capital exclusions that we added in a previous year, okay? Which would have been just the Southern Westchester BOCES capital expenditures. Then to that total, we multiply the growth factor, the CPI, for inflation, and then we'll have to subtract out what we say we're gonna get in pilot payments next year, because we don't wanna levy that tax to the taxpayers. And then I've calculated that our available carryover from the 24-25 school year is gonna be a little more than $1 million, which I indicate in red as tentative because the Office of the State Comptroller has not confirmed that yet. That, as of today, it hadn't been released. But that is 1.5%. So then you get the tax levy limit before exclusions, and then our exclusions for next year will be our bond payments, both the energy performance, the van, and Southern Westchester capital expenditures. So for a simple majority of 50% plus one voters voting on the budget, you could levy $72,188,018, which would be a 7.68% increase. And obviously the actual adopted levy has not been determined yet because we're still in the budget process. Next, Luke. So at the next board meeting, we are going to discuss enrollment projections, the superintendent's staffing recommendations, or the wish list, and your very first budget presentation, in which I will give you the detailed budget that you get from me as the changes per board meeting. Next week. Now you can ask your questions.
Do people have their hands up? I can't see anything, I just see the presentation.
No. But let's give everyone a minute to digest
Oh, no, I
information.
can see.
You can see
Okay,
that?
great, no questions.
Okay.
I can see now.
Okay, so let me
You
understand
have a
this.
question?
Trustee Warner.
So if I look at the rollover budget, that's with no wish list, right? So none of the stuff
Correct.
from the
No wish
last
list.
time, none of the superintendent's wish list, just straight rollover.
Correct.
Year to year.
And you got a 5.11% real property tax increase, which is under the cap.
Correct.
You could go to 7.68% because we've stayed under the cap by so much and built it up for a year, but we're still at 5.11%. And the question is, will the voters bare 5%.
Well, you also have to remember, this is very rough.
Yes.
As I said, we have not gone over staffing. We haven't gone over retirements, positions that are, you know, we haven't gone over everything. So could this change? Obviously, and definitely, it will change. This was just to give you an idea.
Yep.
If we just took everything and rolled it over, this is where
No
you're at.
changes.
Okay, so.
Stay tuned. Okay.
So I think, I mean, next time, we're gonna give our first real budget presentation, and I guess then you'll give us a direction, or if you wanna give us direction now, that's,
We can then build from there.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions?
It doesn't seem like there's any more questions. So the next item on the agenda is there was a recommendation to table item B3. And so we're gonna move to item B4, policy review. That would be, oh, you text me.
Thank you.
Trustee Valen.
Okay, tonight we have 3 policies put before us for review before they're presented to the public at the February regular meeting. Left open for a month for comments and any additional suggestions from the board, and then will be put for a resolution at the March regular meeting. The first is district investments, policy 5220. This was reviewed in the finance committee a couple meetings ago. The only suggestion coming out of that committee was to correct a spelling error that was on page 4 of 5. Trustees, you'll see there it's related to operations, audit, and reporting. The particular sentence says oral directions concerning the purchase or sale of securities will be confirmed in writing, is what it should be, instead of conformed in writing. Are there any trustee comments or questions on this policy? Trustee Nance?
I have a question. Same page. So E1 says the treasurer, but in the beginning of the document, you guys had something else. Let's say school district treasurer. Did you want to update that to be consistent, or just kind of leave it as?
Treasurers repeated throughout. I don't think legally it makes any difference. We don't have legal with us. I'm also going to our acting clerk.
Put it in as a suggestion and then we can review after.
Yes, I've circled those, I've circled the areas, because there's a couple other places. I
Could
see the
you-
2 places under E1 and F1.
could you, in the first page, could you leave it school district treasurer, and then in parentheses put treasurer, so you know maybe throughout the rest of the document it'll
Like you
say
do for other
treasurer?
abbreviations. That's what I was going to get to. But yes,
We're gonna have to.
great minds think alike, Ms. Raymond. But we'll also review the document for other instances. I see those 2. Are there any other comments or questions on this policy? Yep. Trustee Nance?
So C2, that
Hold on,
last
I'm sorry, which section, because there's a couple.
section where it talks about conditions. So it'll be on the second page, so page 3 of 5.
Yep.
Okay, the last paragraph where it talks about the written contract. Is that paragraph more of a process that you guys are outlining?
You know, that's a really good point, because in some policies, we've been changing operational procedures and removing them,
Yeah.
or making them a little more brief within the policy.
So I asked.
So let's put that as a question, and maybe our business office can review that along with legal, to see what they think. questions or comments on this policy? Okay, next one would be policy 5683, which is renamed to evacuation, lockdown, and emergency dismissal drills. It was previously called fire and emergency drills, bomb threats, and bus emergency drills. Any comments or questions on this? Trustee Mans?
All right, so overview letter A, I see school shooting. I feel like we talked about not including that type of terminology in policies, maybe I'm wrong, but just, because to me it could be an incident of violence as well, right? So I don't know if it's duplicative or not, but just want to point that out.
So just to be clear, because we're on camera, the wording talks about, blah, 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 all drills, ... shall not include things to mimic a school shooting, incident of violence, or other emergency. So my question back to you, Trustee Mans, is because it does go on to say school shooting, incident of violence, or other emergency, does that resolve the issue? I'm not clear on the concern.
Yeah, the verbiage is a concern. I thought we were trying to stray away from using that type of terminology. So to me, a school shooting is an incident of violence anyway. So is that not repeating itself? It's just now you're being more detailed with the type of violence, if that makes any sense.
It does.
You're asking to make it like a general term so that it encompasses everything?
Yep, there you go.
So I've written a note saying to look at legal. I'll also note as just a comment that in some districts, not necessarily just in New York, where they address those specific kinds of incidents, some districts encourage those kind of drills to be more realistic, and our policy as written is moving away from that. Without legal here, I can't say if that's a New York State policy, a NYSEB policy, or a Greenburgh policy.
Okay.
So I believe that's where the specific wording came in, because that has been an issue, and that way it spells out that we, as proposed, will not allow those specific kinds of realistic drills to occur. So I have written a note to check with legal to see if just using the general term would cover that. But as far as the possible reason why Erie one is recommending this, what do the other trustees
I think
believe?
to avoid the situation that we want to avoid, we better not fuss it up. So if you replace the verbiage, you better be inclusive enough.
Other trustees?
I agree. I'd like it to be explicit yet inclusive of other, yeah.
So to add more.
Hmm?
To add more?
No, explicit in the, I'm fine with the wording as it is.
So what I'm understanding, to go to a general term, Trustee Mans, it would basically be reworded to say, or other tactics intended to mimic any incident of violence or other emergency. That's where you're.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't think we should, yes, you should get feedback from other trustees, but I don't think you should kind of go into it right now, because isn't this to give suggestions and then we'll review?
But that's what we're doing here as a board.
Okay.
Is the review of the policy before we present it as we have a consensus on to the public. Sometimes the review gets kicked back to legal or other departments if we need that input, and I have written a note here, but it'd be good to hear. It'd be good to hear what.
I just don't want to shoot down her idea without people having time to think about it and hearing back from legal.
Right, but it'd be good also to hear what other board members think. If they have opinions right now, and if not, there's plenty of time to provide that feedback. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this policy? I do. Where is it? I'll just note on page 3 of 5, and sorry, I'm looking at 2 different copies. It does say notification. The district will notify parents or persons in parental relation at least one day, but no more than 1 week before any drill. I believe At the elementary schools, currently in practice, we definitely let them know afterwards. I believe we're pretty good at notifying them beforehand, just so that if it happens to be a drill that might be traumatic to the children, and the parents or those in parental relation can prepare. But I'd just like administration to discuss that in the administrators meeting.
Sure.
And I guess I'm questioning myself, at the upper ages, is notification before the drill required, or is after the drill sufficient? I'm not gonna quibble. I'm probably good with before the drill if it's practical. Okay. What other note did I have? And then just a general note on the renaming of the policy. The policy still contains information on how bomb threats and bus emergency drills are handled, so I'm wondering why that was removed from the naming of the policy. I agree with removing the word fire from evacuation because there are multiple kinds of evacuations, but I would propose that we should just leave bomb threats and bus emergency drills in the policy name because it's included here.
Yeah.
In addition to evacuation alert then?
So what I'm saying is it could be called evacuation, lockdown, and emergency dismissal drills, comma, bomb threats, and bus emergency drills. Maybe it's too much.
It's a lot.
It's a long title, but I get where you're coming from with it.
I'm 50-50. I was just wondering why it was removed.
The bomb threat part doesn't really fit into the other categories in the same way. It gets handled differently.
Then maybe we could just keep bus emergency drills out and just have bomb threats in there? I don't know.
Hi, do we have a policy and governance meeting before the next 30 days?
I don't know. But
So let's just, okay.
All right.
Trustee Valen.
Trustee Jacobson looks like her hand is up.
Thank you.
I just have a question in general. The number of drills is determined by what?
By law.
Yes, those aren't random numbers of 8 and 4.
Well, I didn't know if they were, we set them,
No.
or
No.
we set them in response to the
No.
state, or
No.
we're over what
It's
the
a
state
law.
requires, or.
We're told how many to have.
Exactly now.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the last policy for review is 6560. Determination of employment status employee or independent contractor. Are there any comments or questions on this policy? Seeing none. I believe we're done with policy review. Trustee Rose, we'll turn the meeting back over to you.
I can't hear you.
There's no comments or questions on that policy. I can turn the meeting back over to you unless you choose otherwise.
Oh. Okay, thanks. So next item on the agenda is ex officio student report. And we have Mr. Leo here, right? Yes, that's him in the corner. Okay, Leo, take it away.
So our women's fencing team was recently named league champs, and they're now moving to sectional competitions. There's a blood drive coming up, so any contributions there would be greatly appreciated.
And the date?
February 25th. I just signed up.
So let's repeat that for the camera. Blood drive at Woodlands Middle High School, February 25th. Sign up at, contact srounds@greenburghcsd.org or look on social media for the link. Go ahead.
The Mandarin Club here at Woodlands also had their Lunar New Year assembly yesterday, and they toured the elementary schools today, which which is a great success. And that's all I have for today.
Oh, you missed the parade yesterday.
Oh, yes, Chris Dutton, a senior here at Woodlands, got an offer for a training camp for a club team in Spain for soccer. And he's currently in Madrid right now, I think, where he landed a couple hours ago. So it's very exciting. So congrats, Chris.
Enhorabuena. Okay. Okay. Sounds like he's.
Okay, so I know in one of our previous meetings, trustee Valor read off the list of acceptances. Is it possible, Dr. I, to get that from the guidance counselors for our next meeting?
Sure, I will get an update.
Yeah, and then maybe we can read it off. For board president report, I just wanted to apologize for not being able to be there. I'm not feeling very well. And just encourage everyone to continue to do their best to get through the year. And I'm gonna move on to public comment because it seems as if we have some public commenters here today.
On behalf of President Maris, it looks like our first commenter is Samantha Ives regarding community support.
You want me here or over there?
There.
Here is good? Good evening, my name is Samantha Ives. I'm speaking to you right now as your PTA Council President. PTA's mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. I appreciate Dr. Iverson's email last Friday that included links to Know Your Rights seminars held in English and Spanish between now and mid-March. Dr. Iverson referenced New York State's guidance to schools, much of which is echoed in National PTA's position on rights and services for undocumented children, which I would like to read for the board and for the public. National PTA recognizes that the United States began as a country of immigrants and that the resulting blend of cultures enriches our nation. The National PTA also believes that all children residing in the United States, regardless of their immigration status, have the right to access a quality public education, adequate food and shelter, and basic health care services. Therefore, the protection and preservation of public school attendance, student learning, and well-being is of paramount import to the future and success of our country. The Supreme Court of the United States concluded in Plyler v. Doe 1982 that undocumented school-aged children are entitled to have access to a high-quality and free public K-12 education. States must provide equal access to education for all children. Public schools are institutions of learning and not collection points. Therefore, public schools should not be placed in the position of determining the legal status of immigrant children, nor be required to enforce immigration laws. Furthermore, school districts should not voluntarily report undocumented students to Immigration and Customs Enforcement or other immigration authorities because such actions may constitute a denial of access to education under Plyler. The federal child nutrition programs, including school meals, offer all children, regardless of immigration status, an important benefit that fights hunger and enhances children's physical, academic, and emotional growth. And finally, federal, state, and local entities have a responsibility to contribute to the well-being of children. Additionally, I recognize that some of our community members are nervous on behalf of undocumented or LGBTQIA loved ones and others who may be targeted by federal policy. I encourage the board and all students and community members to review FERPA, F-E-R-P-A, and PPRA, privacy policies recently cited by the Trump administration that protect the records and personal information of students and families. The PTA Council is a bridge between the schools and communities. If you are in need of support, email gcsdptacouncil475@gmail.com. We will help you identify the right school personnel or best local organization to meet your needs. With my remaining time, I am taking off my PTA hat to speak to you as a parent, just me. When we say we are a diverse district, what we're noting is our differences. I see a whole lot of nonsense out there right now trying to divide us more. We know from the hard work that we've done that what we need is to see each other, appreciate each other, and invite each other into shared spaces of teaching and learning and celebrating and grieving, and we can't stop the work we've done to strengthen this community with eyes wide open to how our differences just give us more resources and more joy. I encourage this board and all of us to commit to DEI, whatever we call it, especially inclusion. Don't give up. Our kids need us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ives.
Thank you, Ms. Ives.
Our next,
Okay.
President
Huh?
Mayers, on behalf of President Mayers, our next public speaker is Gabriela Barahona, also discussing community support, translating in Espanol.
Oh, I was gonna say something though. So Ms. Ives said a lot of the community is scared. I would also add, Ms. Ives, that a lot of our children as well are feeling that, and they're in the buildings every day, having to study and do well in school with this sort of stress over their heads.
Okay. My name is Gabriela Barahona. I'm going to translate for Samantha, and I have a question at the end if there is time for it. Mi nombre es Gabriela Barahona. Soy la tesorera del Consejo de la Asociación de Padres y Maestros y estoy aquí para traducir los comentarios hechos en nombre del Consejo de la Asociación por Samantha Ives, nuestra presidenta. La misión de la asociación es hacer realidad la potencial de cada niño, involucrando y empoderando a las familias y comunidades para que aboguen por todos los niños. Agradezco el correo electrónico de la doctora Iverson del viernes pasado que incluía enlaces a los seminarios Conozca sus derechos que se llevarán a cabo en inglés y español desde ahora hasta mediados de marzo. La doctora Iverson hizo referencia a las guías del Estado de Nueva York para las escuelas, muchas en las cuales se reflejan en la posición de la PTA Nacional sobre los derechos y servicios para niños indocumentados, que me gustaría leer para la Junta y el público. La PTA Nacional reconoce que los Estados Unidos comenzó como un país de inmigrantes y que la mezcla resultante de culturas enriquece nuestra nación. La PTA Nacional también cree que todos los niños que residen en los Estados Unidos, independiente de su estatus migratorio, tienen derechos a acceder a una educación pública de calidad, alimentación y vivienda adecuadas y servicios básicos de atención médica. Por lo tanto, la protección y preservación de la asistencia de las escuelas públicas, el aprendizaje y el bienestar de los estudiantes es de suma importancia para el futuro y el éxito de nuestro país. La Corte Suprema de los Estados Unidos concluyó en Pilet versus Doe, un caso del año 1982, que los niños indocumentados en edad escolar tienen derecho a tener acceso a una educación pública, gratuita y de alta calidad desde jardín de infantes hasta el 12º grado. Los estudiantes deben proporcionar igualdad de acceso a la educación para todos los niños. Las escuelas públicas son instituciones de aprendizaje y no son puntos de recogida. Por lo tanto, las escuelas públicas no deben estar en la posición de determinar el estatus legal de los niños inmigrantes, ni se les debe exigir que hagan cumplir las leyes de inmigración. Además, los distritos escolares no deben denunciar voluntariamente a los estudiantes indocumentados al Servicio de Inmigración y Control de Aduanas o otras autoridades de inmigración, porque tales acciones pueden constituir una degeneración de acceso a la educación, según Tyler. Los programas federales de nutrición infantil, incluyendo las comidas escolares, ofrecen a todos los niños independientemente de su estatus migratorio un beneficio importante que combate el hambre y mejora el crecimiento físico, académico y emocional de los niños. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough time to translate the rest.
I think President Mayers would allow it. I don't know. Just keep going.
Okay, thank you. Además, reconocemos que algunos de los miembros de nuestra comunidad están nerviosos por los seres queridos indocumentados o LGBTQIA y otras personas que pueden ser objeto de la política federal. Animo a la Junta y a todos los estudiantes y miembros de la comunidad a revisar FEPA y el PPRA, políticas de privacidad citadas recientemente por la administración de Trump, que protegen los registros y la información personal de los estudiantes y las familias. El Consejo de la PTA es un puente entre las escuelas y la comunidad. Si necesita ayuda, envíe un correo electrónico a gcsdpta475@gmail.com. Le ayudaremos a identificar el personal escolar adecuado o la mejor organización local para satisfacer sus necesidades.
Si se
Gracias.
puede repetir el email, pero escribiendo, deletreando council.
Okay.
What are you saying? I don't know what you're
I'm
saying.
asking her to repeat the email address, but spelling out council.
El correo electrónico es gcsdpta.council475@gmail.com.
Thank you. President Maris,
I think I'm gonna say the same thing I said when,
President.
are you finished? Are you?
President Maris, Ms. Barahon's time is up, but she did say at the beginning of her statement that if time allowed, she had a question. That's just making sure you heard that, so you can make a decision.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm fine with the question, but I was gonna say the same thing as I said at the end of Miss Ives, that el joven son preocupado también. The young people are worried also. That was it, but if you have a question, go ahead.
The question is regarding the guidance. This is a question coming from myself as a parent, something that's been on my mind for a bit. I understand the board cannot answer any inquiries at this moment. The information that was provided to the administrators, the faculty, the staff, I was wondering if that includes the bus company employees as well. Just with the headlines from this week's, raids, any potential raids, my mind can't help but wonder, could school buses be pulled over as soon as it leaves the school? I never imagined I'd be in front of you asking this question, but I think it's important for families to know if the guidance covers all bases in case a situation like this arises. And I think we all can agree, we hope it never does. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more public speakers?
No, there are not.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we're at the point for executive session. Can I get a motion?
I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations, the employment history of particular persons, personnel matters and/or employee records, and matters deemed confidential by state or federal law, including seeking advice from counsel.
Discussion.
It's been properly moved in second. Is there any discussion?
Did you include collective bargaining?
Yes.
Okay, no. Discussion. Thank you.
Hearing none. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We're gonna go into executive session. Ivy, is it the same link?
They're gonna do it. I'm either gonna be in a really good mood next week or a really bad mood. I'm not sure yet.
Next week.
What about next week? Super Bowl Sunday. Everybody watches.
No.
Not even for the commercials?
Nope.
Not even for the food?
Nope. Nope. Mass consumerism, don't get me on the.
Oh, it's great. It keeps me up to date with the culture. So I watch one football game per year. One Super Bowl. That's it.
Do you watch the game?
Everybody watches the.
I watch the game.
Do you take notes on it? So you know what's like?
Oh, I just absorb it.
in his book.
Waiting
That's-
for
that's all.
wardrobe malfunctions or?
Well, what are all these extra lines on the field?
No, we get, Eric in particular gets quite verbal watching the game.
You get a babysitter?
Oh, they'll say it'll have time. He doesn't curse, he
I
just, he
leave when-
gets very
Oh.
colorful.
I leave when you take it.
He's very creative.
It's the same,
Same maybe.
It's more,
she's
on like
texting
the
me.
snark side of the. The neighbor was like, you're mean. And I go,
Okay.
Regardless
Can
of
we-
the name.
is-
we're live.
Are we ready to go?
You're ready.
Okay, wonderful. Then I gotta get this split screen thing. All right, let's get back and, it's now 11:55 PM. It's ridiculously late. And we're back from exec session now. We're gonna go to personnel items. E1, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the instructional personnel items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item E2.
I move that we approve the non-instructional personnel items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
Still properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. E3.
I move that we approve the board action items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item E4.
I move that we approve the pupil personnel services items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item J1, appointments, after-school exam prep. Item J2, minutes. Item J3, policy approvals. Item J4, treasurer reports. J5, warrant reports. J6, non-resident tuition rates. J7, certiorari settlements. J8, certiorari settlements. J9, certiorari settlements. 10, 11, and 12, all certiorari settlements. J13, health services contracts. And J14, health services contract.
Question?
No comments?
Yes.
Yes?
Going back to J3 policy approvals, trustee Along, I think you said the wellness committee met and discussed 7420. Do you have feedback for that yet?
No changes on that one.
No changes, so it can move forward as is? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other items for the next agenda? Okay, any new business, K1? Hearing none, can I get a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
To properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 11:58 PM. Good night.
Good night.